So what is money laundering and why does it matter? Well, let's start by understanding what it is. Money laundering is any act or attempted act to disguise the source of money or assets derived from criminal activity. And simply put, if someone commits a crime and receives money as a result of that crime, that money is evidence, otherwise referred to as dirty money.
It's a river of dirty money running through this place.
Yeah, but the problem with having all that money is that sooner or later you're going to have to explain where it came from.
Well, that's where I come in.
In order to get rid of criminal evidence, but still keep the money, criminals need to convert that dirty money into clean money, making it difficult to trace that money back to the original crime.
I channel it, filter it, funnel it. Stocks, securities, tax-free municipals. I send that money out into the real world, and when it comes back...
Money laundering strategies can get overly complex and covert, but at its core, laundering money involves integrating that dirty money into the financial system. And that involves you and your organization, which is why you need to know about money laundering and how to detect it. You may very well be the most likely person in your organization to spot money laundering activity. It happens at the client level, and rarely is it obvious. So before we talk about why it matters to you, let's talk about why money laundering matters, because it's kind of a big deal. And by kind of, I mean it's a really big deal. Not just here in Canada, but all around the world. The United Nations Office on Drug and Crime estimates that the amount of money laundering globally is as much as $2 trillion US annually. That's roughly equivalent to 5% of the world's annual gross domestic product, GDP. And that's more than Canada's entire GDP. Or, to put it another way, more than 5 times Amazon's annual revenue in 2020. Now, I fully support budding entrepreneurs making a dollar, but there are huge implications for making money through criminal activities. There are political consequences, like the erosion of the rule of law, the perception of a safe haven for illicit money laundering, a loss of a country's credibility and influence on the world stage, reduced government revenues, and the negative perception by the public that a government is weak on crime. There are social consequences of profitable crime. It incentivizes criminal activity. Criminals feel more empowered. It increases victimization, both in perception and reality. And it reduces confidence in both private and public sector institutions, not to mention a positive feedback loop of a profitable crime encouraging more criminal activity. And then there are economic consequences. An increase in economic distortions with consumption, savings, and investment, which affect economic growth, reduced domestic and international investment, higher illicit capital inflows, as well as higher legitimate outflows, distorted market prices, unfair competition in the private sector, increased issues with bank liquidity, increased solvency issues, and reputational damage, particularly to the financial sector. So, that's why money laundering is an issue and why combating money laundering matters. But why does it matter to you? And there are really 2 answers to this question. First, money laundering isn't just the stereotypical reintegration of physical cash back into the financial system. In many cases, money laundering involves money that is already legitimately integrated into the financial system. Consider Brian and Shannon Kitts, charged with operating a multi-million-dollar Ponzi scheme that resulted in the loss of millions of dollars of investors' money between 2014 and 2016. The Manna scheme, another Ponzi scheme that scammed 800 people, mostly seniors and unsophisticated investors, out of $16 million between 2005 and 2007. And Rashida Samji, a former notary from Vancouver who ran a Ponzi scheme from 2002 to 2012, scamming 200 investors out of more than $100 million. Yes, these are fraud cases, but they're also money laundering cases. A Ponzi scheme is a criminal offense, and monies derived from a criminal offense are criminal proceeds. In the case of Rashida Samji, she managed to move criminal proceeds around in the system for nearly 10 years before her scheme was detected. And this brings us to the second point about why money laundering is an issue and why it matters to you. It happens under the radar. Many of the people who do it very well. Perpetrators of profit-oriented crime in Canada range from unsophisticated, criminally inclined individuals, petty criminals and street gang members, to criminalized professionals, very smart people like accountants, lawyers, investment advisors, and brokers who choose to profit through criminal means to organized crime groups, the most sophisticated of profit-oriented criminals. Criminal Intelligence Services Canada estimates that more than 650 organized crime groups operate in Canada, with the greatest threat coming from transnational groups which have long ties to criminal organizations operating in other regions around the world. They often use professional money launderers to set up elaborate and complex operations to move money around, which can also involve unsuspecting individuals to carry out very specific pieces of the operation, without ever knowing that they are a part of an elaborate operation. This is why understanding money laundering is so important. It happens, often, and usually undetected, intentionally. And it's not just about physical cash, it's any criminal offense that generates proceeds.